Good afternoon. Welcome everybody to your Public Works and Gang Reduction Committee. I'm joined by my colleagues, Mr. Buscaino and Ms. Martinez. We've got a number of items I want to take on consent, but we do have some multiple speaker items, so I'd like to start the meeting by going through our multiple speaker card items, and then we will go through the agenda. So, Wayne from Encino, if you could come forward for 2 minutes on all the items, and then 1 minute for general public comment after that. Mr. Spindler? Okay. We'll try him again at the end. If he's not, we'll close. Next, it'd be Red Chief. Mr. Chief? Mr. Red Chief, are you here? Okay. Next is Antonio Ramirez. I did hear your voice, so Ms. Ramirez. Welcome.
I'd like to start with my public comments. The city of Los Angeles has failed to combat the violent, malicious gang epidemic mayhem. Make no mistake, case in point, both La Placita and Skid Row are ping pong balls where...
Ma'am, could you speak to the items? You're on the 2 minute, or do you want to go straight to public comment?
I'm sorry?
Do you want to go straight to public comment, or are you speaking to the items?
I said I would go straight into public comment and then go into my multiple, if you don't mind.
Okay, multiples first and then public comment.
Okay, well then I'll start with my multiple. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, on item number 2, when you say featuring both male and females, are we talking about fags, bisexuals, and trannies? That needs to be put in lingo too. That needs to be very specific. Number 3, ladies and gentlemen, stop all the funding of all the money to any city corrupted capital project. It feeds their diabolical slush fund. Number 4, be forthright with the taxpayers, you politicians. There is no public safety in LA. Cut the crap. We have a Chango gang epidemic, and God bless the LAPD. The LAPD is overrun and outmanned by these public safety violations. Again, we are being horrendously attacked and taken by these reptilian gangbangers.
Stick to the items.
I'm sticking to even though I dissent. 8, there is no public safety, not even in the beautiful Music Center Grand Park. The streets are less safe. Again, the LAPD, God bless them, they are outmanned and outrun by all these criminal monopolies and criminal empires. And
Last
number
warning,
9,
stick to the items,
Number
please.
10, abate public safety. Hell no. As long as we have these corrupted, evil, satanic, elite Zionist Jews and the criminal monopolies who order their foot
your
patrol
time on
pussies.
the items has
Again,
expired.
don't censor me. Don't
You
censor
can now
me.
go to
yeah,
public
we are
comment.
talking about criminal empire. You talk about
Right,
public
which is
safety.
not
I live
on
on the
the-
streets. There is
Not
no
on the
public
agenda.
safety. There is
1
no
minute
public
public comment.
safety. Yeah.
You now can go to
No,
public
this
comment.
is called retaliation because you're the pussy like Buscaino. Be a man and clean up the fucking streets. Do your job. I do it at night and day, helping the other fucking homeless
Stick to
people
items.
who live on the fucking streets, asshole. You go to sleep well, you sleep well in your home. We
You're
sleep
now
under
disrupting
terror.
the meetings.
Be terrorized by these motherfucking gangbangers.
Okay. Please leave the meeting. You've been asked to leave the meeting quietly. You're still continuing to talk. You've been asked to leave the meeting. Let the record reflect. Ms. Ramirez has been asked to leave the meeting. She's still continuing to disrupt this meeting. Exit the meeting forthwith. Next speaker, Mike Greenspan, would you please come to the mic? Please exit the meeting. Sergeant, please show her the door. Okay. Sorry for folks who are in this meeting. This is unfortunately a regular occurrence that we have here. Next, we have Mr. Greenspan. Mike Greenspan, are you here? Mr. Greenspan, you have 2 minutes to talk to items on the agenda, and then following that, you'll have a minute on items related to Public Works.
Mike Greenspan, Brew and Bud kicking Florida Gator. And I do want to mention, I guess it's a pet peeve of mine, because we're always temporarily closing things. And maybe my spelling and your spelling are different. After all, I've never seen any of these temporary closings, such as 4, 8, 10. of anything ever be temporary? How about we use the word permanent? Permanent. I'm a gifted student. I didn't go to school in the LAUSD, and I know the difference between temporary and permanent. Is there some political incorrectness that does not allow us to say forever and ever permanent? I mean, if it's temporary, is there a particular period of time it's going to be reopening? I don't think so, but if it was temporary, the intent would be to reopen it at a particular time. Now, I see we've got a street, a name change of a street on number 6 from Antioch to Arnie Wishnick. And I always remember Antioch as this left-wing university and out of Yellow Springs, Ohio. Real left-wing. It actually makes Cal Berkeley look like the John Burke Society. That's how left-wing. And I don't know, I guess our city of social conscience is losing some of its social conscience and is getting rid of the Antioch name, because that's where I guess the school is. And it's about a competition and equal prize money. That should be a no-brainer. But maybe we can have such things, take from Florida the watermelon seed spitting contest and take it out from the Florida Panhandle and give some prize money to it. Herb could say to Nuri, "Will you spit my seeds out?" And she'll hit him like she's Ruth Buzzy of Laugh-In. Anyway, and he's the dirty old man. Now let's go to the general public comment because, okay, after all, we put a lot of money into public works. It's not a glamorous committee. There's no glory or certain appeal to it. It's just the nuts and bolts of a city. Without public works, things don't get done. Now, maybe we made some mistakes with our things that we are temporarily closing, i.e. permanently closing. I guess it's become a big pet peeve of mine. Why don't we just say permanent closure? We did a permanent closure of a freeway exit from the 101 onto Cahuenga. And nobody ever said, oh, this is only going to be temporary. No, they took the asphalt out and put dirt in, and it's closed, that exit, right there by the mobile station. Oh, yes, the signs, and people thought, okay, let's stop it. Well, by the time somebody in the community tries to stop something, it's a done deal. You know that. I know that. And have your extra 9 seconds. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Steve Cucci. Someone named Steve Cucci. Next, there's someone wrote the name The Reaper. Is there someone named The Reaper? Mr. Wang. Now, I see there's also Wayne from Encino. Mr. Encino, did you write your name down more than one time?
Well, the reason I had to sign up twice, in case you try that stupid shit with calling me outside in the hallway, because I know you tried that bullshit,
Yeah,
so I
just
re-signed
to
up.
be clear,
Because you're a sneaky Jew. You see,
to be
you
clear,
sneaky,
the
you
rules
sneaky
state you
kikes.
can place.
Yeah,
Stop
you're
talking.
sneaky kike.
Stop talking.
Yeah, you sneaky kike.
Please, just, if you do it one more time, you'll be asked to leave. Keep your mouth quiet until I call on you. The rules of this committee are you sign up once. You can sign up for multiple items, but you cannot use a series of false names. You know the rules. This is a warning. Do not do it again. Now, Mr. Wayne from Encino and Mr. Wang Dong and whatever other names you have on here, you have 2 minutes to talk to the items, and then you'll have 1 minute afterwards for general public comment related to items before this committee. You may speak.
That fat fucking cunt Nuri Martinez on number 10 finally closes the horror pedestrian tunnel underneath that fucking Interstate 5 and that fucking Interstate 70. All the drugs, homelessness, this fat fucking tubular ass cunt that can't even fucking pronounce words in English has the nerve to come here after 8 years to do what? Temporarily close the fucking freeway pedestrian tunnel. Why don't you put cameras in the tunnel? Why don't you put security in the tunnel? Why do you have to close the fucking tunnel? Because you're a cheap fucking cunt. That's why, because everything in CD6 is done on the fucking cheap. You think we're all niggers. You think we're all a bunch of fucking slaves, but we're not. There are many Jews that live in CD6. There are many non-niggers that live in CD6 that want to use the pedestrian tunnel, not for drugs, you fat fuck, but for normal pedestrian access, including the use of a bicycle. But now, you're going to shut it down to fucking punish all of us because you cannot do your fucking job. You cannot fucking represent your own fucking district. And so now, again, we lose another access point for the disabled, for the bikers, for the skateboarders, and for the normal people that walk and normally use a goddamn pedestrian tunnel. Now, we don't do that in CD2. We have a tunnel because Paul Krakarian, the big fuck, at least he puts lighting and security. Don't close it. Do your fucking job, you fat fucking cunt. And now for my general comment. I am tired, Jew, of being threatened by you, okay? I can sign up as many fucking names as I want, as many fucking times as I want. And you can't even require me to sign up a fucking speaker card to speak at a Brown Act meeting. That you don't follow the fucking law. Oh, no. And I'll tell you what I saw in Van Owen today. You know what I saw? You're trying to take all the cameras out of that place. March 30th, 2017, that the mayor's staff called 911 and said I had a gun in my car. And when I was like this, my friend, they loaded a fucking automatic rifle with a scope at my head, and I have the camera to prove it. I have the video from the LAPD. So you try to kill me, so you know what? I earned my right. I'm going to get up here, and I don't have to talk. I just talk when I want to fucking talk. Now go back to your fat fucking cunt wife, you stupid fucking Jew bastard.
Time is over. Thank you for that very pleasant conversation. Okay. I believe that ends our multiple public comment speakers. So, colleagues, I'd like to move with items 4 and 5, 8, 9, and 10 on consent. Is there any objection to doing so? Seeing no objection, and then items 6 and 7, we're going to take those quickly because they just require a minor technical change, and then we'll go back to the top of the agenda. So, Mr. Esposito, would you read item 6 into the record, please?
Item 6, the recommendation for item 6 will be amended to reflect an honorary street name change so that Antioch Street from Via de la Paz to Swarthmore Avenue also be named as Arnie Wishwick Way, and that the Department of Transportation be instructed to erect permanent ceremonial signage to this effect at this location.
Okay, you just read the amendment, so without objection, we will amend the motion as read. Seeing no objection, that will be the order. Moving to item number 7, if you could read that item and the amendment into the record as well.
Item number 7, we would just like to move forward with recommendation number 2 of the report.
That's right. Okay, without objection, we will move forward with recommendation number 2. We'll approve the recommendation number 2 in the CAO report that's dated August 21st, 2019. Seeing no objection, that will be the order, and we will now move to item number 1. If you, Mr. Esposito, would you read that into the record?
Item number 1 is a motion from Council Members Blumenfield and Rodriguez relative to decreasing the minimum installation depth requirements for substructure utility placement and related matters.
Great. Mr. Allen from the Bureau of Engineering. Come forward, and I should say while you're doing this, I'm excited about this item because I believe micro-trenching can be a win-win for the city and can help us construct our fiber networks more expeditiously. I think that's really important. So if you could provide a brief overview of the micro-trenching, its advantages over conventional trenching, any disadvantages that we should know of before we move forward with this ordinance.
Sure, my pleasure. Ted Allen, Deputy City Engineer with the Bureau of Engineering. Thank you, Chairman Blumenfield, Council members. Excited is the exact word I was going to use as well, because As you all know, digging in the streets, causes damage to the streets, causes traffic impacts, and we believe that micro-trenching method has progressed to the point that it can be done effectively and causing less damage and less traffic disruption. But the current municipal code requires that we place utilities at least 24 inches deep, which micro-trenching typically would be less than that. And typically about 4-inch wide trench and about in the range of 18 inches deep. Obviously with volatile utilities, gas, things like that, you would typically place them 24 inches or deeper because you don't want someone to accidentally hit them and cause dangerous situation. But with telecommunication utilities, that's not a concern as far as danger if you hit them. And with the slurry and micro-trenching, you're often able to see that there's going to be a utility there anyway. So we feel very confident that micro-trenching has benefits of being able to get in and out of the street faster, causing less damage to the streets. But it does require a change in municipal code to allow us to allow utilities to be placed less than 24 inches deep. And also, as your motion recommends, and we agree that it would probably be appropriate to charge an alternate SDRF, maybe not a different square footage rate, but a different influence area possibly. So we will be happy to look at that with the city attorney and see what alternate would make sense, and working with the utility companies as well and getting their input in that process.
Great. I have a number of questions, but I see we have 2 public comment cards, so I'm going to call the public comment cards up first, and that way we can ask questions and you can also address the comments as well. So Mr. Scott Longhurst, followed by Gerald Wright.
Good afternoon, Chairman Blumenfield, members of the Public Works and Gang Prevention Committee. My name is Scott Longhurst. I am the Government Affairs Manager for Crown Castle. And I just really wanted to take this opportunity on behalf of Crown, we're the nation's leading shared communications infrastructure company, to support the motion made by yourself and Council Member Rodriguez. As Crown works throughout the United States, we have witnessed and been part of advancements in technology and the build out of communications infrastructure. And we felt strongly that some of those technologies could be utilized here in Los Angeles to, as Mr. Allen pointed out, lessen the impact on your streets, expedite the deployment of fiber, minimize the disruption to your residents and to your businesses. And so we applaud this initiative. We look forward to working and continuing to work with the Bureau of Engineering to successfully identify and implement new innovations that can further the City of Los Angeles' technology, communications, and economic development goals. And just before I walk away, I just want to thank all of you again and your staff, as well as Mr. Allen and his staff at BOE. It's been a real pleasure working with all of you, and thank you again for your time and your assistance in getting this move forward.
Thank you. Gerald Wright.
Good afternoon, Gerard Wright, Policy Manager for LA County Business Federation, representing more than 400,000 businesses that employ 3.5 million people in Los Angeles County. I want to thank Councilmember Blumenfield for this forward-thinking suggestion for the micro-trenching and other such technologies to further reduce the impacts to communities that also improve businesses as they increase their technology upgrades that will need for economic competitiveness, as well as job creation and security. So thank you again for the motion. We look forward to working with the Bureau of Public Works and others to make sure this is a success for the City of Los Angeles. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much. Mr. Allen, if I could get you back up to the podium. And just a couple of questions. I'll start talking while you're walking, which is, has the city conducted any analysis or testing of micro-trenching beyond the demonstration that was completed on the DOT lot?
Yeah, we did one early on near Piper Tech, and we learned a fair amount from that. We saw great advances in the second round of pilot testing in the DOT parking lot. We would like to do, we'll continue to analyze the process as it moves forward, as we develop procedures to allow it to be used in the streets with council permission. we will be observing and seeing if things are working well or not well. But the pilot that was done in the Department of Transportation parking lot went very, very well, and we took core samples of it after. It, was very satisfactory. There's just a few minor adjustments we plan to make based on that.
Great. Will there be an industry-wide meeting to allow for feedback on the standard? If not, could there be one prior to the actual approval of the standard to make sure we bring all our partners involved?
Yes, definitely. Similar to what we did with our standard for regular trenching, we had multiple meetings with industry and received their input and incorporated a lot of changes based on that. We have a regular substructure committee meeting that we meet with industry. That will likely be the place that we will, officially solicit their input and present it to them, but we always receive it by email outside of those meetings as well.
Great. No, it's important as we move forward. And will there be a need to have a modified repair and resurfacing requirements for the cuts that were made by the micro-trenching?
As far as you mean modifications to what we currently do with our existing standard for regular trenches?
Yes.
Yeah, we envision, because they're narrower trenches, we will probably require a slurry backfill, so there won't be an option for a compacted backfill like there is with normal trenches. With our regular trenches, we have 2 feet to either side of what we call a T-cap, where they do a grind and overlay. Because these are much more narrow, we're envisioning something more in the 18 to 24 inch total range, not to either side, but still some type of T-cap. So it will be modified and scaled down, but it will have its own standard.
Great, thank you. Colleagues, additional questions? Mr. Buscaino.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for leading on this forward-thinking infrastructure initiative. We are advancing towards a smarter city, and as we do so, we have to start thinking about this type of quicker way of installing broadband throughout our city. I'm seeing this up and down the state and throughout the country. As our National League of Cities, we have been advocating the federal government for a long-term infrastructure bill, and part of that bill is to ensure that we have broadband infrastructure built into it. But real excited to see this on today's agenda as we're innovating ways along the LA waterfront, creating an innovation district, and part of that is to install a broadband network. And if this is a quick way to do so, real supportive of that. I also want to do want to recognize the letter that we have in front of us from BizFed to ensure that we as a city include them in this process moving forward. They're asking for a task force to convene with the various stakeholders, but clearly in your response that you will include our key stakeholders in the business community, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comments, questions? Mr. Rue.
I saw demonstrations of the micro-trenching, and I thought it was a great way to go, and it's much faster turnaround time as well, which would be very convenient for residents as well as businesses alike. But quick question. For those severely damaged streets, whether it be concrete or whether it be asphalt, because I know our current patchwork program requires a larger patch than just whatever gets trenched. How would it work for micro-trenching? And I'm saying for those special cases where the street is already damaged and the micro-trenching might cause.
Right. So for the standard trenches, our latest trench standard, and this was partly based on input from industry, our current trench standard for regular trenches, we do what we call a T-cap, the grind and overlay outside of the trench area, only if the street is less than 8 years old, or 8 years or less old, I guess I should say. Because if it's older, it's less time till BSS is going to be coming back to resurface it, so we don't have them do that extra T-cap. With the micro trench, because it's so narrow, 4 inches, you don't really have an option to properly compact asphalt in that 4-inch space very well. So with micro trenches, we may always require this kind of T-cap just as the way to bond the surface, because we don't have an option to put asphalt in there. There are some polymers that we've seen, and Crown Castle did a great job piloting them, but they're very reliant on everything being done very properly, and it kind of is a little bit slower process. So what we're envisioning at this point, but we will work with industry and look at different things, but what we're envisioning at this point is they'll use a cement slurry all the way to the top. They'll be able to leave the site that first day, get in and out very quickly. But then they'll have a paving company come back later and do a little grind and overlay, just about 18 to 24 inches wide. We're still looking into what the width will be. And that will give the proper kind of join with the existing asphalt. So short version answer, we plan to always require some type of TCAP, but it will be much less than what you see on the typical trenches.
Okay, so you are considering that.
Yes.
Wait, so in all micro trenching, it's cement, it's concrete?
It's what we call a cement slurry, so it's much easier to dig through than a concrete, but it's a sand and water and cement so that it hardens sufficiently well enough that it won't settle. Some of the ones you see around that weren't done well in the past in different cities, you'll see like a 4-inch trench and then you see it kind of settling because they threw sand in there or something. So we don't want that to happen. So the cement slurry will hold up so it won't settle. Mm-hmm. But then at the surface, it won't really bond with the asphalt to the point that, when you have buses going over it and whatnot, we expect it would kind of crack. So that's why we're going to have them put a little surface finish of asphalt on it afterwards.
So what about concrete streets? Is it a concrete fill or?
It's actually a really good point because we haven't piloted it in concrete streets. We'll look at it with industry. This ordinance change would allow us to have a policy for concrete streets, but we haven't actually evaluated what would be done. But in the concrete streets, we may well be able to just replace it with concrete. But currently our municipal code requires when you trench through a concrete street, replacing the full panels.
Right.
So if we wanted to make a alternate for that for concrete streets, we would need to change that section of the municipal code as well. At this point, that's not in the requested change. It's something we could look at if we wanted to amend it to look at that.
So you guys will come back to us?
Yeah, we
Okay.
can do that.
Great. You want to add that as a report back to come
Sure.
back?
Sure, that'd be great.
So we'll do that in just a moment. Any other comments or questions? No, we have one additional speaker card that didn't get into the system but was handwritten. So thank you, Mr. Allen.
Oh, sure.
Noel Palace.
Good afternoon. My name is Noel Palais with AT&T. I want to go ahead and just thank you for the motion. Want to state that for the record that we appreciate the motion and support it, and also want to go ahead and echo what our partners from BizFed and Crown Castle had indicated also, that we thank you for your leadership on this, for moving forward on this, and we look forward to continuing to work with yourselves and with Ted, and also thank you and your staff for moving forward on this motion. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. So without objection, we'd like to move forward on this item, approve the motion with the added report back requested by Mr. Rue to come back to us with a report on concrete, micro-trenching and concrete streets, what that would take and what changes we need to make if appropriate. Okay, without objection, that is so ordered. That'll take us to item number 2. Ms. Minosa, if you would read that into the record.
Item number two is a motion for Council Members Wesson, Martinez, Rodriguez et al. Relative to requiring equal compensation and prize money for any competition featuring both male and female divisions that takes place in the city and requires a city permit.
Right, and we'll invite Gary Harris and David Rivera to come forward. While they're doing that, I'll just say that I'm very excited about this. We've gone a long way toward promoting gender equality. This is definitely a step in the right direction. And Ms. Martinez, thank you for bringing this forward. And now the floor is yours. Welcome.
Good afternoon, council members. We're here to talk about the addition of a new ordinance that would require the city to standardize a process to require applicants for right-of-way permits to have equal prizes. The motion before you request an ordinance to be drafted by the Office of the City Attorney. Certainly at that time when that ordinance is drafted, any new requirements would be added to our special event permit requirements. But prior to that ordinance being drafted, we also wanted to make you aware that we have the ability at this point to begin issuing that immediately as just a permit requirement, which we're authorized or delegated through the board to put special requirements on the permits we currently issue. So even prior to this new ordinance coming forth that's being requested, we have the ability now to start requiring that in the city of Los Angeles for any event that takes place on the public right-of-way, such as races, 5Ks, marathons, and those types of events that come through the one-stop special event office within the Bureau of Street Services. So this is something that could happen almost immediately with your direction, that we could start this as a part of our process.
Great. Any additional comments? Great. Well, I think this is great. Just a quick question. This affects things that are on the public right-of-way. What about if you're closing the public right-of-way for an event on private property? And the reason I ask is something like Staples Center, where they often close Chick-Hearn Boulevard and other sometimes related streets. You get a permit to do that, but clearly the events inside, the Sparks and the Lakers are not paid the same.
Right, that would not be under our purview. And in fact, a lot of the events that occur where they close that street in particular did not require a permit from the Bureau of Street Services due to an agreement between the city and Staples Center that allows them to close Chick-Hearn Court under various times of day with only the approval of the Department of Transportation. So they're not allowed to get a special event permit for the majority of their events.
But even if it did, just so we understand the impact of this, it only affects events that are held in the public right-of-way, not on private property, even if that private property event may involve closing the public
That's
right-of-way?
correct. Our permit requirements would only affect the public right-of-way, not what occurs on private property.
Ms. Martinez?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question. So what kind of proof would someone hosting an event that pulls one of these permits have to provide to us to ensure or to prove that equal compensation or prize money is being provided at this event? What kind of proof do we need to get from them?
Normally with these types of events, that's going to be published, especially we're talking about a race. That's going to be part of the public notification of the amount of prize monies that are going to be offered for the event. So obviously, we're going to verify that what they're advertising to the public meets the requirements of this motion.
Do you have any idea how many events or which major events would be impacted if we adopted something like this?
I mean, I only know of the marathon itself that actually has the prize money. All the other minor ones usually don't have prize money.
Okay.
So we can look into it and see if we can get you a better answer.
I just was wondering if we move forward with this, maybe there is a way to sort of start letting folks know that this is a possible direction that we might be headed in, so that people don't feel like they're caught off guard.
Certainly, we can reach out to the major event sponsors that we work with on a regular basis and give them some prior advance notice that this policy is coming.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, after you're done with questions, I have one instruction before we vote on this item.
Okay. Colleagues, additional questions? Who's going in?
Again, thank you, Mr. Chair. Happy to support the makers of the motion here, along with Mr. Ryu. So it's my understanding that prior to pulling the permit of a special event that includes prize money, the organizer has to agree to ensure that there's equitable compensation, correct?
That's correct.
What happens if they say, or they don't abide by it? What's the enforcement piece?
If they're unwilling to agree to the requirements of the permit, then the permit won't be issued. They would have a right to appeal to the Board of Public Works, but we would deny the permit.
Okay, so what happens if so there's an appeal process?
Correct.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Councilmember, the post-event enforcement, when the staff has become aware that the permit was issued, a condition was imposed, they challenged it or didn't, but the permit was part of the condition was part of the permit.
And what if they don't abide by it?
And then they don't abide by it. We could take a look at the code. There may be a violation of failing to follow a
condition that was in
Are
the
we looking at
permit.
fine, jail time?
It could be a violation of the municipal code, but for many of these events, these are not one-off things. If that applicant wants to come to the city the next year to have that race again, then that would certainly be something that the city could take into account and in fact deny the permit.
Thank you.
So I think people will take it seriously if they ever intend on having another event in the city again.
Mr. Rue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to applaud the leadership of Councilman Nuri Martinez, Monica Rodriguez, and Council President Wesson for bringing this bill, and I too was able to second it along with my colleague, Councilman Buscaino. And, we also did a companion resolution where we supported Congressmember Manchin's bill in the federal government to withhold money for the Olympics and FIFA as well. And I think this is very opportune, especially early on in 2019, when LA is going to host the Olympics in 2028. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of confusion and a lot of things to work out. But by the time the Olympics rolls around to Los Angeles, I think it will be clear that the city of Los Angeles supports equal pay for athletes, whether they're men and women. So I think this is a very great step forward. If you guys have any problems or any implementation issues, I'm sure you'll come back to us and we'll tweak the ordinance or do what we need to do. But we want to make sure that this is a fair city when it comes to sports.
Thank you. Ms. Martinez, you had some proposed instructions.
Yes, I did. So I want to move that we instruct the CLA with the assistance of any other appropriate department to report back on the feasibility of making the requirement of equal compensation and prize money the norm for other competitions involving males and females divisions, like those that may not require a special events permit taking place in the city.
Okay, without objection, we'll add that instruction. And we will recommend approving the motion. Seeing there's no objection, we will approve the motion as with the additional amendment. Thank you very much. So that'll take us to item number 3. Mr. Espinosa, if you'd read that one into the record.
Item number 3 is the last item on our agenda, and that is a report from the City Administrative Officer relative to the Innovation and Performance Commission Innovation Fund funding for the Capital Projects Data Integration Pilot Project from the City Administrative Officer.
Swan, welcome. And
good afternoon. Thank you so very, very, very much. I'm Bianca Swan, Project Coordinator for the Innovation and Performance Commission. I read today that it is the 238th birthday of the City League of Los Angeles, so I just want to wish a happy birthday to the city, the council, the mayor, and all of his residents today. On behalf of this Innovation and Performance Commission, they would like to recommend funding for $75,000 for the Office of the CAO's Capital Projects Data Integration Pilot Project. I would also like to note the pilot will be administered by the CAO's Grants Unit, not the Municipal Facilities Group. The aim of this pilot is to integrate essential financial data from the city's financial management system alongside programmatic information into the city's grant management system, bringing information into a single system to facilitate large, complex capital projects. I'm joined by Cami Fong, who's going to come up and provide more detail, and we'll both be available to answer any questions that you might have.
great. And thank you for the birthday wishes on behalf of the city. Ms. Fong.
Hi. All right, I just wanted to open up with stating that this project will equip staff with the necessary tools to maximize their performance relative to the management of capital projects. Currently, in the city, there is no single centralized system that allows us to link and display both financial and programmatic information together in a standardized and consistent format that is also accessible to all participating departments. So this project will propose to solve that longstanding dilemma. So by augmenting or enhancing our existing eCivis grants management system, we'll be able to integrate that financial information, taking it from our financial management system, uploading it to an independent server, and then in which eCivis will then grab that information and then populate it into the financial field set up in the eCivis grants management system. So I'm available for questions.
Great, thank you. Well, it's long been a priority of the committee to try to promote our better use of grants, and so it's good to see some innovation on the front when it comes to grants. But help me understand, how do multiple departments working on one project currently share information, and how will this be different?
Well, currently, departments, in order to get their financial information, will run a query or report in the FMS system on those funds that they control. And so you can only run the report separately on each fund, and then you have to bring it together to all the participating departments. They have to put that into a single format, and then you have to reconcile and verify that data all over again. So no department has access to all the funding sources involved in a capital project. So there could be 8 to 10 funding sources, and you have to rely on, say, CDBG funding. So you have to ask HCID to run a report on that funding source. Proposition K, the CAO Municipal Facilities Group would have to run a report on.
And so who keeps is there a central spreadsheet, or are we using Excel? Or how are we keeping that data now to know when you want to get a snapshot of a project? How do you
often have to put it into an master Excel document and then display it that way.
So circa 1994?
Yes, very much so. So it's very time-intensive, tedious, manual, reconciling and verifying data.
So at what point in the future would the CAO or participating departments be able to determine whether this pilot is successful? What are the metrics for success on a pilot like this?
Well, simply in being able to set up appropriate financial data fields in eCivis, so then when you run a query after this augmentation is done, you will run it based on a unique identifier, like a project ID number or a work assignment number. So it would pool all the financial data from all the funding sources based on that identifier and bring it over. So then you'd be able to see all of the funding sources displayed under categories for, appropriations, expenditures to date, remaining balances.
Right, and this system can talk to both the FMS and the eCivis system, and right, because they're two different. The problem right now is those systems don't talk to each other, right?
Correct.
This is going to be able to have the two of them talk to each other. Are you guys going to try to document time saved or money saved by this process in terms of staff time or something, so that if in the future we're looking to expand it as a city, we can have the nuts and bolts in terms of hard numbers?
Yes, we'll be able to track that.
To track the time saved. You'll base it on what you have a model of how long these things usually take to put together, and then you'll compare that?
Right. We'll probably do a survey with all the participating pilot departments to ask them how much time they spend on average tracking and managing their funding sources. And then once we get the pilot up and going, we'll have them track their time and effort.
And is this a one-time cost, or is this going to be a recurring cost every year?
The $75,000 is a one-time cost, so that includes the development and implementation of this programming, the training, and the tweaking adjustments that are needed. And then after that, going forward, it'll be $10,000 to maintain access for the participating pilot departments.
And when we expand it to other departments, is it $10,000 per department, or how do we get to scale this thing without increasing our costs?
That would have to be discussed with eCivis to negotiate a price to include more departments.
Okay. Colleagues, any questions or comments, concerns? Seeing none, I'm going to recommend that we approve the recommendations in the CAO's report with the technical corrections provided by the CAO staff. And we also instruct you to report on the success of the pilot project and the metrics for success that you're going to have. Without objection, so ordered. Mr. Espinosa, is there anything else left on our docket?
No, Mr. Chair.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.